right, good evening, good evening. What tonight is going to be is sort of a quick introduction to the new Georgia compensation fund for wrongfully convicted people. Georgia recently, earlier this year, through the Georgia legislature, passed an act. That act will be known as OCGA 17-11 6. And that would be to compensate those wrongfully convicted of crimes and that were felony crimes that were in prison and somehow released. And I want to go through that entire law with you. But the cool thing about this law is that it's run through the Georgia Office of State Administrative Hearings. For those that practice law, we call that OSA. But they make it basically a step-by-step approach where if you're wrongfully convicted of a crime, let's say any felony, take theft, for example, and it turns out that you actually did not commit the theft, there's proof of it, your conviction gets overturned by the Georgia Court of Appeals or the Georgia Supreme Court, and you spend some time in custody, you now have options as to how you're going to resolve the case and whether or not you're going to get payment. And we'll see very soon that payment can be upwards of $75,000 per year that you spent in custody. And if you were on death row, an additional $25,000 per year that you spent in custody. So you're looking at about $100,000 a year for every year that you're wrongfully in prison. So, Georgia really didn't have a type of law like this. There's been a lot of talk about people that are been on death row for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. Turns out they didn't do it. So they've been sitting in a cell that's, 10 by 10. And evidence comes through, whether it be a DNA evidence, whether it be the real person came forward. But ultimately, they were found to be not guilty, and the charges were thrown out, conviction was overturned, and the DA at that point says, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to bring any charges against you. So now we can actually compensate these people for the loss of 30 plus years of their life sitting in that jail cell. So I think everybody would say that being wrongfully convicted of a crime and spending time in a jail cell or even awaiting the death penalty is very wrong. And now we can do something about it. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you the website that the Georgia OSA built and how easy it is to really file for compensation. So here we are with, if we go to this website through the Office of State Administrative Hearings, you will see that Georgia has created its own website. And it says on May 14, 2025, Governor Kemp signed into law the Wrongful Conviction and Incarceration Compensation Act. This legislation authorizes the Office of State Administrative Hearings to consider claims of wrongful conviction and incarceration and to award compensation to those individuals who meet the statutory requirements. And the website is actually pretty awesome. I'll take you through it real quick. So we're going to get into this, but how to file a claim. This I'll show you is the law behind it. They're going to talk about the rules. Essentially, once you file a claim, you have to go in front of a judge. It's not the judge that either ruled and sentenced you to prison or the judge that even released you. It's not going to be the Georgia Supreme Court judges or justices or the Georgia Court of Appeal judges. It's going to be a different judge. who is in no way involved in any part of your case except this part. These type of judges handle work such as child support recovery. They handle work such as license suspensions and DUI laws. So this is a judge that you're going to go before. Talks about how to serve process. What's the right way? Who's the right person to serve with this, essentially this lawsuit? And it's going to talk about the sample releases. And then we get into the frequently asked questions. So I want to start with the frequently asked questions because I think that will help us really understand the law. And it will really understand who does this actually apply to. And let me just do this. Give me 1 second. Okay, so who is eligible to file a claim under the Wrongful Conviction and Incarceration Compensation Fund? And it's going to be OCGA 17-22-1 to 17-22-12. There is also a part of this code section that's going to be under 17-11-6, which we will see. So you are eligible to file a claim if the claimant has been, this is key, convicted of a felony by a court of this state, meaning you have to be in Georgia, you have to be convicted by a felony, no misdemeanors, can be felony. So anything that would put you in prison or sentence you to anything above 365 days in custody. So think drug trafficking, really any type of sex crime, theft of a certain value, stealing cars, anything, murder, of course, rape, robbery, arson, big time crimes. So number one, you have to be convicted of a felony of this state, and you have to have served all or part of the sentence for any such felony. So we refer to things as like you're going to get a 10-year sentence, right? 10-2, 10 years probation or 10-year sentence with the first 2 years to serve in prison. So if you've served any part of that, then one of these have to apply. Okay, so the first one, your conviction was reversed or vacated, meaning the Georgia Court of Appeals or the Georgia Supreme Court said we are reversing your conviction, or we are essentially getting rid of your conviction due to some error. It could be any type of error that they feel is worthy, but reverse, which means something really brutal happened in that case where we needed to change the verdict immediately. And the charges were then dismissed after the conviction was reversed. So think of it as you're in prison for murder, you're serving the prison sentence. The Georgia Court of Appeal, or in that case, the Georgia Supreme Court says, you know what, we're going to reverse your conviction. Something happened, maybe an error in jury charges or opening statement, closing statement. Maybe the prosecutor was hiding evidence. And then, therefore, what does the prosecutor do when you get that case back at the trial court? If they dismiss the case at that point, then you have served these two bullet points already. If they haven't dismissed the case, which doesn't happen all the time, then you can qualify if you were acquitted. So you go to trial on murder. The Georgia Supreme Court says, we're going to reverse that. We're going to send it back. And then you go to trial again, and you were found not guilty. If that happens, you, at this point, qualify for funds. The next thing to qualify for is if the conviction was reversed and vacated, and then you entered what's called an offered plea or a plea of no contest, which you would have otherwise had a new trial. So the way that works is what an offered plea is you saying I'm guilty under this particular case offered, and you're recognizing that a jury could find evidence that would convict you of the crime. So you're not essentially admitting that you did it. You're essentially admitting that a jury could find you guilty based on the facts of the case. And this is a very common plea that's entered in court. The other type of common plea is called a no contest or nolo contendere plea. And that kind of plea is you saying, look, I'm not contesting that I did it. I'm not contesting that I didn't do it. I'm not contesting anything. I just simply want to plea and take my punishment. So a little different than offered, but you're just not contesting it. So if your conviction was reversed and vacated, and then you entered one of these two pleas for whatever reason, time served, then you could still qualify for this to get money under the Wrongful Conviction Act. And of course, the last one is you received a pardon based on innocence. So pardons can be based on a lot of things. Essentially, the governor likes you, or you did something good while you're in custody. But in this case, it's a pardon based on innocence, meaning there is overwhelming support and overwhelming evidence that you did it or that you didn't do it. Everyone knows you didn't do it. Johnny down the block has already admitted that he did it, and you're still in custody. And at that point, the governor can say, look, I'm going to give you a pardon on this matter, or whoever's going to give you a pardon, and therefore it's based on innocence and you qualify for this act. And what happens is at that point, now you're ready to go. Now you can go and start collecting and trying to move towards trying to get that $75,000 per year that you were in custody. Now, this is an extremely burdensome process. It's not easy, right? So first off, it's not easy to get your case reversed or vacated. And even if you got it reversed or vacated, that could happen fairly quickly into your sentence. So even if that happens, then the rest of these things have to happen. So, in my experience, very little. I think out of the most, the probable result would be this. And I think prosecutors are going to know this. They're going to know that, hey, if I give this guy an offer where he can plead offered or he can plead no contest, I think they now know he can collect money under the Wrongful Conviction and Incarceration Compensation Act, and therefore they're going to ask for a guilty plea to resolve the case. Otherwise, you're going to have to go to trial. And of course, the only way then you get funds at trial is if you get acquitted again, a not guilty verdict. So I think this is going to be the linchpin of this statute. And I think prosecutors are going to do everything they can. Even judges may say, look, I'm not taking this plea because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to give you, the state's going to give you money. I think that there's going to be a lot of litigation about this part. So who do I serve when I have a claim? So let's say you get out and you qualify for this. You're required to serve a claim on the Attorney General and the prosecuting district attorney. So if you're in Forsyth County, you'd serve it on the Attorney General of Georgia, and you'd serve it on the prosecutor DA in Forsyth County. The rules of OSHA, remember we're in OSHA, provides additional information for service. We've already seen that. And for the list of prosecuting attorneys, let's say you don't know who the DA is when you get out of jail, right? You get out of prison. You get out of prison 25 years, most likely the same DA that put you in prison is going to have been either retired or a judge or a defense lawyer or just not there. So you have to click here and get the list of prosecutors at the time that you get out. Where do I submit my claim? You could file a claim. It tells you the exact form to file, tells you exactly where to mail it, or you can send it by an email attachment or faxing it. So super easy to file. Will I be appointed a lawyer? If not, how do I find a lawyer? No, you do not get a free lawyer to do this. You can represent yourself or obtain attorney representation. I think right now lawyers, there's not a single lawyer there in Georgia that has filed one of these yet because the law is so new. Fees wise, as hiring a lawyer is going to be very interesting. The question is whether or not you can, if a lawyer can take this on a contingency basis, meaning they get a percentage of the funds, or if they have to bill hourly. I don't know the answer to that yet, but we shall see soon. You'll receive notice of the hearing It'll tell you when it is, the date, time, location. Remember, you're a free person at this point. So you'll be able to go there without any handcuffs or anything. And then you have the hearing, right? So the judge is going to talk about the law. It's going to talk about it's your burden to prove eligibility beyond a probable cause. I'm sorry, beyond a preponderance of the evidence, which is far less than reasonable doubt. And it takes pretty quickly. And really, you're going to have to prove that you're eligible. You got to go up here and say, yes, judge, I was convicted by a felony in a court of this state. I served part of my sentence. I served 15 years in prison, and therefore I got out because my conviction was reversed, and then the DA dismissed all the charges. Sounds pretty simple. You have certified documents of all those of all of the forms, and you'll be good to go. Following after that, of course, then they'll have the evidentiary hearing, and this is where it gets a little interesting in the law, and we'll have to dive a little bit deeper into this law. But the judge can then therefore determine whether the claimant committed the crime for which he was convicted or any lesser offense, and the amount of compensation he's entitled to, if any. So the next form is about compensation, and that's going to be the compensation in the amount of $75,000 may be awarded for each year of wrongful incarceration, prorated if necessary. So if you didn't spend a whole year there, you ain't getting 75 grand. They may also award reasonable and necessary attorney's fees, costs, and expenses incurred by the claimant or on the claimant's behalf in reversing. So these are your appellate lawyer costs, assuming you paid for one. You may have only had a public defender where you don't get these costs. You get reimbursement for costs, fees, restitution, surcharges, and of course the additional $25,000 while awaiting a sentence of death. Beginning January 2026, the dollar amounts specified may be adjusted to reflect cost of living, which means they go up. Probably talking 3%, 3 to 5% interest per year. Of course, if you have any questions in the comments, just throw them in there, and I'll answer them as I move along. But what happens at the administrative hearing? Again, you're going to present all your evidence. The judge is going to hear it. We haven't had one of these yet, so once I know more, I'll certainly let you know. But the cool thing is, once you get here and you understand all this, all you got to do, how to file a claim, right? Boom. Now, it cannot be easier than that, right? So it's a 2-page document. This is the form. It tells you what to do. It tells you that you're not entitled to a lawyer. It tells you you got to serve this guy and you got to serve this guy. And you write down when you served it, how you served it. Super easy. You're going to be the claimant. If you're a lawyer, then you'd file this on behalf of. If the claimant, unfortunately, is dead, which is an interesting issue, person dies while waiting to get out, person dies while waiting for the appeal, person dies the minute he gets out of jail. So the heir or the lawyer can represent that person if necessary. But you write your information here. The lawyer writes their information there. In the matter of, this is very simple. Was the claimant convicted of a felony in the court of Georgia? Yes. Please indicate which court. Forsyth County Superior Court. Did the claimant serve any and all part of the sentence? Yes. What did he serve? Eligible claimants must establish that they did not commit the crime for which they were convicted. We go back to what we talked about originally, the 4 options. How do we win this case? How do we get money under this, right? The charges were reversed and vacated. And in your case, did you just get out of jail and they're like, you know what, forget it. You didn't do it. I'm dismissing the case. Boom. You get it reverse vacated, then you go to trial again, right? I've tried cases where we go to trial and we have to retry the case twice. So in this case, maybe you go there twice, and the next time he was actually innocent. Maybe new evidence came up, and the jury heard that and they're like, nah, he didn't do it, and they say not guilty. Again, you get the third options, those pleas, and then of course the fourth option is the guy is actually innocent, and therefore he needs a pardon. Um, you sign the form, and then you send it on in. The law for this is you just click it, brings you right here, talks about everything, and it's 14 pages. It's pretty long, but it starts here with one part of the law, and this goes into whether or not the DA was disqualified or there was some bad actions going on. And then, of course, as you go down, it tells you 17-22-1 is our brand new law, cited as the Wrongful Conviction and Incarceration Compensation Fund. Talks about the things that we just said, the offered plea, tells you who the DA is, tells you who the claimant is, and you essentially just follow this law. One part of this, it talks about the money, which I will get there. Here it is. For each year of incarceration, $75,000, provided that the prorated amount shall be allocated in any partial year. An additional $25,000 for each year while awaiting sentence to death, right? And then reasonable attorney's fees, and then in calculating time of incarceration, an administrative judge shall only include time served for the charge for what the claimant is making. So this kind of applies if you're in jail for multiple offenses. We want to know, the judge needs to know when you started your jail sentence for that offense. And that's all pretty easy to find now. Every jail, every prison certainly is using computers. So it's all going to be on it. And then you just simply go down the law and you just follow it, to a T, and you move on. So this website is so new, and this new law is so new that parts of the website are still coming soon, right? The sample release and waiver form, right? The document that you need is not even uploaded yet. So I suspect that this website's going to get very heavy traffic on it, probably enough where it just shuts down. But ultimately, I think Governor Kemp and his crew in Atlanta, they have really stepped up to give us something, to give everybody something, where somebody's wrongfully arrested, wrongfully convicted, spends time in prison in a cell that's no bigger than 10 by 10 max, and the conviction gets overturned and the charges then get dismissed because he's actually innocent, right? The charges get dismissed because a jury doesn't find him to be guilty. Charges get even pled to where he's actually still not admitting guilt. He's just trying to he or she's trying to close a chapter in life. And this law compensates, and it tells prosecutors, it tells judges, it tells all those people, you gotta, let's start with the fairness, right? Let's start fairness, and we're going to give people that shouldn't be in jail money. The question is going to be, where does money come from, right? How many people are actually wrongfully convicted, not convicted and then they get out because of a technicality. I'm saying wrong, like truly innocent. How many people are truly innocent, and where does the money come from? So 10 people take advantage of this claim this year, and they spend 10 years in prison, right? You can kind of see the money adding up. And I think we're going to run into a problem later on, but is that a problem that we're giving money to wrongful people, or is the problem really the conviction, the trial? Maybe we need to focus on why people are getting wrongfully convicted. What are prosecutors doing to be wrongfully convicted? What are judges doing to ensure that to not ensure fairness in their courtrooms? But sometimes even, what is the defense lawyer doing, right? Why isn't he objecting? Why isn't he representing his client? Why isn't he investigating the case? So all three people have to be involved somehow in this. But super shout out to the Georgia Innocence Project, the Georgia Justice Project. That's where those entities helped pass this law. GACTL, Georgia Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, it's probably as well as some prosecutors. But ultimately, this is a great law, I think, for the future. And I really think that it's going to help ensure fairness in the criminal justice system as we move forward. All right, I'm AJ Richmond, lawyer in Forsyth County, Georgia. Certainly comment on the video if you need anything. And that's it. Have a great day.